This video will contain discussions of sexual and physical abuse and assault. Viewer discretion is advised.
I believe anyone can be redeemed.
But he rapes people, Charlie. Has-Been Hotel often feels like one of the most discoursed shows to ever be discoursed on the internet. Like, if you know one thing about the show, it's that people online get very angry about it. And the reason for this is that the creator is a woman. The reason for this lies in this core conceit. This is a show about redemption that features serial murderers, abusers, rapists, cannibals, and genociders in its cast, many of whom seem utterly remorseless and continue to commit those same misdeeds on screen repeatedly for the duration of the series. And no character is more emblematic of this discourse than Valentino, who we have seen physically, verbally, and emotionally abuse angel dust. There are plenty of other things to talk about with Valentino, but that's not the scope of this video. Today, I just really want to answer the question, can Valentino be redeemed? A question that is inevitably complicated by the fact that many of us have widely different definitions for what constitutes redemption. For one, there's redemption in the eyes of the audience. Regardless of how the characters are handled in the story, will viewers be able to accept and forgive these characters for their actions? Other people are talking about in-universe redemption. Redemption in Has-Been Hotel is about more than just a character arc. It has literal, physical, tangible consequences. We might already consider the bad deeds of certain characters to be forgiven, but can they do what Sir Pentious did and literally ascend to heaven? The final and most widely accepted use of the term redemption is what I would call narrative redemption. This has nothing to do with the opinions and feelings of the viewers, but involves the evolution of a morally flawed or outright antagonistic character into a better, healed character that is either neutralized as a threat or turns into a protagonist. This would apply to characters like Zuko from The Last Airbender or Lapis from Steven Universe. Viewers may or may not like them, they may or may not agree that they've done enough to atone for their wrongdoing, but they have been redeemed within the narrative. I would also apply the term narrative redemption to characters who make one last self-sacrificial action, like Darth Vader in Star Wars or Jinnu from K-pop Demon Hunters. So yeah, not all narratively redeemed characters are necessarily going to be redeemed in the eyes of the audience, and vice versa. To use another Lost Airbender example, maybe you empathized with Azula's plight, maybe you saw enough of her backstory to decide that she did nothing wrong, or you forgive her, or you understand where she was coming from. She might be redeemed in your eyes, even though the narrative does not consider her so. And characters that have been redeemed in-universe don't necessarily need to be redeemed in terms of the narrative or the audience. For example, you could imagine a hypothetical version of Sir Pentious who, after gaining his redemption to heaven, decides to throw Charlie in the hotel under the bus and become an antagonist and betray all of his hell friends. This version of the character would be unlikely to be seen as redeemed in the eyes of audiences and would be still considered an antagonist. So yeah, I'm presenting these three definitions of redemption to show that this question is pretty messy, but fear not, I will be answering all of them in this very long YouTube video. So I hope you're all excited to join me on this ride as we discuss the nuances of rehabilitating a rapist. Hi there, my name's Maru. Welcome to the channel. So let me start cards on the table. I do believe in rehabilitation. I do believe in the human capacity to change. I don't believe in moral absolutism. I don't believe that there are certain specific actions or a certain number of demerits that you can get on your report card that mark you as beyond saving, quote unquote. However, I think that context is extremely important in this situation, and I feel very strongly that people's feelings on these characters are not to be dismissed just because of seeming logical inconsistencies. So Valentino has attracted his own swarm of dedicated haters, which is understandable. However, this has led some people to question why these haters are being so harsh on Valentino, but are willing to give characters like Angel Dust, Alistair, and Vox a pass, when many of them have committed similar or way more heinous crimes. Now, one response is to say, well, I hate all of them too, so there. Which, fair, go off queen, consistency, we love it. But at least from my perspective, I think having internally inconsistent feelings and judgments of characters on a moral basis is a-okay. I think it's chill, as long as you think it through and you hold on to the logic and you understand that you're being kind of hypocritical. I don't like Valentino, and I don't really want to see him redeemed. I like Alistair, and I would not mind seeing this character get redeemed, but I recognize that the reason why I feel that way is extremely personal. So I've been sexually assaulted before, and I've been in abusive relationships as well. It's pretty hard to look past that when I see Valentino on screen. He has his moments. I think the "I'm from Florida" line was pretty fucking good, but I personally have a really difficult time looking at this emotionally unregulated man take out all of his troubles and anger onto one of the most vulnerable characters in the show. My understanding of Valentino is that he is incredibly manipulative, he knows how to gas people up, he knows how to make them feel big, and he knows how to break them down. He is a powerful abuser entrenched in a system that he helped construct in order to enable his abuse. He shows zero remorse in any of his actions. In fact, he absolutely delights in them. And the glamorization of this abuse undoubtedly draws more people in and makes his abuse even more effective, as he is such a terrifying figure. And all of these traits can be easily mapped onto a lot of people who exist in the real world. And this is the number one reason why we have to be careful with the language that we use around redemption. Because I don't know if you've been following this whole Jeffrey Epstein situation, but if you do, you will find a common trait within remorseless, self-serving, politically influential, and powerful abusers is that they love this language around redemption. And all of these fine folks love it too. And even when these kind of people show remorse, pretty much anyone who's been a victim of some sort of abusive relationship knows how terrifying the outward performance of redemption and goodwill can be when your trust is violated. So yeah, Valentino being redeemed makes me uncomfortable, not only because of my personal experiences, but also the cultural context that I and everyone else watching Has Been Hotel lives under. That is a rape culture that lets stuff like this happen. And yet, these aren't really objective ways of measuring a character's worthiness. Back to the logic, the internal consistency question. Is what Alistair did not worse than what Valentino did? So personally, would I rather be sexually assaulted, abused, and exploited, or murdered and eaten? I mean, don't tempt me with a good time. In all seriousness, I would likely choose the former because I value life a lot, and I think the hope of escape and somehow getting out of that situation is preferable to the certainty of the end of my mortal life, after which they'll put me in hell for forcing my friend to watch Shark Boy and Lava Girl. But even that assessment doesn't necessarily prove anything in terms of objective morality. I've seen it argued that the prolonged trauma and suffering that happens as the result of abuse and assault is arguably worse than death. And I get that too. Like, after I was assaulted, I also felt, and the choice at the time may not have been so clear-cut. I can only really say what I'm saying now because I'm on the other side of a lot of healing. What am I getting at here? What's my point? Well, morality, unfortunately, is extremely subjective. I'm not a scientist, nor a philosopher, nor deserving of any basic human rights, so take everything I have to say with a grain of salt. But I do subscribe to the school of thought that says morality is somewhat biologically and emotionally driven. We have instincts to preserve ourselves as a species, inborn feelings and sensations that cause us to favor cooperation, and generally promote social harmony. I don't think that our naturally innate sense of justice comes from a book or any lofty, enlightened thinking. Should Valentino be redeemed? If we don't get enough nuance, enough insight into his problems, and we aren't able to see and track the process through which he gets redeemed, I don't think so. I think that if his redemption arc were to be mishandled, if any of his foibles were played for laughs, and we didn't really get to see him reckon with the damage he's done and understand what's gone on from the perspective of the victim, then I think portraying him as a redeemed character would be irresponsible. Now, if they portray that healing process in a thoughtful, nuanced way, I may or may not enjoy watching it, but I would not mind if they redeemed Valentino if that's really the direction of the series. Will Valentino be redeemed? Well, first of all, you have to want to change. Valentino seems to like his life in hell very much. He had to be talked into the whole take over heaven plan because he was content with his place in the world. He seems to dehumanize Angel and his other actors to such an extent that any pain that they go through up to and including their death is utterly inconsequential. That type of dehumanization is tough to overcome because no matter what original trauma or belief it may have stemmed from, once you're in this deep, it's now a defense mechanism. Val on some level knows that if he stops dehumanizing these people, not only would he have to deal with the apocalyptic levels of guilt that he had dammed up behind it, as well as losing what seems to be the primary outlet for his rage, but it would utterly destroy his livelihood. And this is more than just a career, it's an entire way of life for Valentino. His status, his personal safety, everything would be under threat. So yeah, I think a lot of incentives would have to change externally for Val before he'd have any realistic likelihood of reconsidering his actions. Seems like a lot of time to dedicate to him that I don't know that we're really gonna get, especially as he seems to serve primarily as an antagonist to Angel Dust, who is the character that is definitely going to receive a redemption arc. While the V's in general are likely to have a much reduced role in the next season, we know that Angel Dust is going to receive a lot more focus, and given Valentino's position as the new head honcho, if anything, I'm kind of expecting more exploration of the depths of his depravity, how the scars of his abuse continue to affect Angel Dust, and whatever shady and deceptive means that he used to convince Angel to sign away his soul. Time and time again, we've had it hammered home that a theme of Angel Dust's arc is how the struggle with redemption and changing and outgrowing your old patterns is made nearly impossible when your agency is constantly threatened. And Blake Roman, Angel's voice actor, was recently quoted saying that Angel is probably going to learn that he's not as trapped and hopeless as he thinks he is. Valentino suddenly developing a conscience and backing down on his abuse would severely undercut this arc. So even in the most optimistic case, I really don't think that it's going to be in the cards until after Angel is redeemed. And that feels like it's probably going to take the whole show. Do I begrudge people who like Valentino for liking Valentino? Absolutely not. Earlier, I alluded to the large group of Valentino haters, but I would be remiss to not mention the huge number of Valentino fans. For some reason, a lot of people love this guy, and I don't think that they're all pro-rape. I think some of them might be, but I don't think that the gay teenagers that are making Vox Valentino fanfiction or cosplaying him to Hazbin Hotel Q&As are seeing the same things in this character as us mere mortals. A character is more than just the sum of its parts, and Valentino does embody a certain aesthetic that I can see a lot of people being drawn to, especially when it comes to the range of gender expression for male characters. Like I said, I don't see it, but a lot of people do. And anecdotally, a non-insignificant number of those people are transmasc. And I don't think that's nothing. He also offers queer Latino representation, which while some people find that problematic, others are just happy to have another queer Latin character. And on the whole sexual assault thing, like, yes, some people are going to brush the abuse and everything under the rug, and that's bad, boo you, spray bottle, but like, I can kind of imagine how some people might use a character like Valentino to help cope with some of the abuse that they've dealt with. It's just not a very simple issue, and I have no way of knowing which of these situations are true for someone just because they're drawing Valentino fan art. So yeah, takeaways. Yes, please engage with the realities of assault and abuse and how baked those things are into our institutions and how horrific characters like Valentino are, but also don't jump straight to harassment online. Take a deep breath. Think before you post. The idea of responding to something might feel good in the moment, but is it actually going to be helpful for you or for anyone else in the long run? Or like, I'm being serious, next time you feel like leaving an angry, mean internet comment, please just like call your representatives. You can literally talk to them about any issue that is troubling you, and they absolutely have to listen to you. Ask your congressman to weigh in on the has-been discourse. The very last thing that I want to say on this subject is just kind of my feelings on redeeming abusers in general. I'm not sure how relatable this is to other abuse victims, but on this topic, I feel like I have to hold two truths at the same time. One of which is that when I think about my own suffering and some of the pain that I've been through, it is very easy and natural for me me to want to wish harm on the people who hurt me. And I think there's an extent to which internally validating these angry, vengeful feelings is important. Without those feelings, it's very easy to slip back into justifying abusive actions and the feelings of worthlessness and unhealthy people-pleasing tendencies that can come with that. At the same time, I know that if I could snap my fingers, I would honestly wish for these people to recover and lead happy, healthy lives. For one, because I know for as long as they continue without any growth, more people will continue to be harmed in the ways that I was harmed. But for another, I guess there is just that whole wanting a greater sum total of happiness in the world thing. That said, in my case, even if my abusers were fully healed, I would not ever want to interact with them again. Part of that is to do with trust, part of that is to do with trauma and the things that I associate with them, but I also think that part of it is just kind of natural consequences for their behavior. I think that's okay. I think that both of us can heal as individuals without any need to mend or repair our relationship. I think the expectation that our relationship ought to be mended in itself feels like a holdover from the entitlement that led to the abuse in the first place. It's the classic dilemma. How much do I have to heal before you'll date me again? Well, I want you to heal to the point where you don't feel like you have to date me. I think that me not wanting to be buddy-buddy with my abuser doesn't necessarily mean that I have an unhealthy attachment to the past, and that my abuser being healed doesn't mean that they're in any way entitled to a relationship with me. And I guess when I think about that duality, I do kind of feel a sense of thankfulness that there are enough people out there in the human race who are willing to accept and form healthy relationships with my former abuser, that it doesn't have to be my responsibility to redeem them. And if this series ultimately goes with a Valentino redemption, I just really hope that Angel Dust is allowed that same room to breathe. But hey, that's just my 2 cents. This is a very complex and nuanced topic that I wanted to talk through my feelings on, and I thank you all for joining me and hearing me out and letting me talk about them. But I'd love to hear from you if you have any opinions on Valentino. All I will say is that since this is an extremely sensitive topic, I will be moderating the comments section for any hateful language or harassment. I also ask that if you plan on discussing any more graphic experiences of SA or abuse, that you properly tag your comment so that ideally people can participate in the discourse without having to engage with anything that might be traumatizing or too much. Obviously, I have no control over what you post, but again, I really do urge you, if you are planning on making some sort of hateful comment, please just call your representatives. Your voice matters. Thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. I originally planned on including Alistair and Vox in this discussion, but the video was getting too long and I want to get my pluribus thoughts out there as well. But let me know if you'd like me to cover any other Has-Been characters in a future video. For all its ups and downs, I loved Has-Been Season 2, and I have a lot of thoughts, especially on the Angels. Definitely expect a video on Heaven coming soon. If you think I'm such a smart, beautiful, hot genius and you want all of my thoughts now, me and my friend do a podcast called Nobody Leaves, where we've already discussed both seasons. I am a small creator, so your comments and likes really mean a lot to me. Not only for the algorithm, but because I really do just love discussing this kind of topic. Thanks as always, consider subscribing, and in the words of Lava Girl, everything that ever is or was began with a dream.